Yes. Wow, what a gift. What a privilege to be standing here and to have a room full of people give you their attention. It's no small thing. So I'm going to proceed as if that is something special, because it really is. So thank you. My story begins with a question. And it's a question that I'm sure most everyone in this room has heard at least once in your life. When I first heard this question, I had no idea what it meant, and I was probably about 5 years old. And if you can guess, the question was, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? You know, it seems like this harmless, cute question, right? Very simple. What do you want to be when you grow up? And if you take a close look at this question, you can kind of start to see unravel the spell that this question casts from a young age, right? So inherent in this question, what do you want to be when you grow up? There's a sense that you have to become something different. And so in that, there's this sense that you're innately not worthy as you are, but you must become worthy. And it's something at some point, you may become that if you choose wisely. And that also in this question is this sense that you will be defined by what you become, by what you do. And this is kind of the conditioning I found that I grew up with in the dominant culture in North America. And it had caused this question of worthiness in my life for many years. And it was the burden and anxiety around this question that I think was at the depths of the inspiration behind starting this one-week job project. When I was first asked this question, I was probably about 5 years old. I remember playing in the sand pit, and some big person asked me this, and I had no idea what it meant. First of all, I was like, what do you mean I'm going to grow up one day? I was like, all right, okay, fine. If I have to grow up, and you're telling me that I have to be something different, okay, well, then that's an obvious choice, right? I'm going to be a superhero. I'm going to be He-Man. Masters of the universe. You can tell a lot about my childhood from this photo. Take a close look. You can see that my mom used to cut my hair. She no longer cuts my hair. Going down south, you can see that I had some really rippling thighs. I must have been really into yogi, right? Lots. And I had this really short grass skirt, So this question troubled me for a long time. It was kind of cute at the time. And then as I got older, not only did I feel like I was supposed to have an answer, but there was this expectant look on the asker's face that they were waiting for something good. Right? And in my response, I was going to get this validation, this acknowledgement, depending on what my answer was. And I remember it was about grade 10 that my answer changed, 10, 11, and realizing, okay, well, I can't just have an answer. It has to be something good, something that people are going to think is successful. So my answer changed to physiotherapist, right? Sounded good. But I had no idea what a physiotherapist did. It was just this answer. And I struggled a lot with this question, and a lot of anxiety came up for it. When I finally graduated from university, I did quite well in school, and so then people labeled me as having potential, right? Potential. One day, you might be worthy. And so I graduated from school, and I was really excited about what was next, right? Now I could finally make my own decisions and do what I wanted to do, but I was absolutely terrified at the same time, because now it meant it was time to start working. And everything that I had been taught about work was that it was this terrible thing. You don't enjoy work, you endure it, right? But if you work hard enough and long enough, one day you reach retirement, and then you get to do what you want to do, right? I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but this is so ingrained in my upbringing in the dominant culture in North America that we put it on Hallmark cards, right? My mom retired just last year, and this is the card that she got. Isn't that cute? It even spells retirement. Congratulations, Mom. Now that you've put 45 years into the working world, you can finally relax. Imagine the possibilities. Remind yourself to play. And I love this one. Mom, go ahead. Go and take that nap you've always wanted to. Without guilt. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to wait until I'm 65 years old where I can finally take a nap without guilt. And so when going back to this question of deciding what do I want to do, I experienced a lot of anxiety, and I ended up thinking back to a conversation I had around the dinner room table. It was my final year at school, and my family, my older sister, puts me on the spot. She's like, Sean, you're graduating in a couple of months. What are you going to do? And I really had no idea. I had nothing to contribute to this conversation. But as I'm sure all of you are well aware, our families are experts at telling us what we should be doing with our life. So all of them had an opinion. My sister pointed out that I had just spent, a good chunk of change on getting this shiny piece of paper that said business degree. Maybe I should go and use it. My mom, a little more subtle, said, Sean, I think you should be a teacher. You'd be such a good teacher. But my dad, this is my dad. He's a cutie. He was the only one that didn't have a specific career path in mind. Instead, he just gave me some advice. He said, look, Sean, it doesn't matter what you do. Whatever it is, just make sure it's something you're passionate about. It's like, I've been alive nearly 60 years, and I've yet to find something that I'm passionate about. And then he quickly added, besides your mother. I got to cover all the bases. And so hearing my father said that really stuck with me. And so I made a promise that I would find something I was passionate about. And I heard that lots. Well, Sean, you're stuck. You're in this moment of transition. You're asking these big questions. Who am I? What do I want to do in the world? And why am I here? And people say, hey, go find your passion. I was like, yeah, I'm in. I want that. How do I do it? I came out of school and I felt a little ripped off. I'd spent 22 years in school, and not one conversation I remember about, what is your life purpose? Why are you here? What are your gifts? What is the contribution that you want to make to the world? What makes you come alive? Weird, right? That majority of people that you ask, what is your life purpose? And that's a confounding question. So I felt a little ripped off, and so I came up with this idea to go and learn about it. Learn about myself, who I am, what I need in a career to be happy. So I called it the 1 week job project. I worked 52 different jobs in 52 weeks all around North America. I wanted to first start with nothing and think about what is it that I need in a career to be happy, and learn from other people how they found their passion and what advice they have for other people struggling to figure out their way. So I traveled all around North America, everything from a park ranger in Hawaii. I was a fashion buyer in New York. I was a dairy farmer, a Hollywood producer, a firefighter in Florida, bartender in Halifax, yoga instructor. It was actually my first time I'd stepped foot inside a yoga studio on the Monday. Did 6 hours of class Monday through Thursday, sometimes participating, sometimes taking notes. And then Friday I got up there and taught. I was absolutely terrified. Cowboy, NHL mascot. I worked with the Canadian Air Force in Trenton, Ontario. And my final job, week 52, I was back in my hometown of Port Moody, BC, which is about half an hour outside of Vancouver. And I was the mayor. Time to clean this town up. So over the course of the year, I traveled over 50,000 miles. I slept on 55 couches and raised over $20,000 for charity. So I asked my employers to donate my wages to charity, and how I survived was I had a sponsor that helped out, and I didn't have to pay for accommodation once. I was able to sleep on couches. People following the journey would say, hey, Sean, I see you're coming to town. You're welcome to crash with us for the week. So I had this amazing adventure, and it's continued to grow. I wrote a book, as was mentioned, and there's a film, and it struck a chord, it resonated, and I realized that I wasn't alone in this search and answering this question, what do I want to do with my life? And in fact, it's something that all of us can relate to. I got emails from people all around the world, and we since began projects in Australia, in UK, and India, with subsequent people from their own country doing the 52 Jobs project. And also in the US with a 60-year-old woman named Linda Chase from Portland. This woman is just so inspiring. She's had a couple of hardship over the last several years. We met on a plane, and due to the economy, she lost her job. Subsequently, her house was foreclosed on her. At the same time, she lost her life partner to brain cancer. And she was still this bright light, and just this feeling of, well, what's next for me? Who am I at this stage in my life, and how do I want to make a contribution? And so it really made me realize that this question of what do I want to do with my life, what are my gifts, is not something that we face once in our life and leave behind us, but it's actually something that we may face several times throughout our life. The first big one is right out of school, and then perhaps facing a layoff or a divorce or moving cities or retirement. It's our kind of shared search for meaning. And what this project offered me was an amazing glimpse into different workplaces. I really got to see a myriad of different work environments and work with people of all sorts of backgrounds, and I was able to observe so much. And so I'd like to share with you some of the lessons that I learned and some of those observations that I took away from the experience. I should actually probably first mention, well, Sean, did you find your passion? And yes, I did. I discovered that my passion is to explore and to help others. So more specifically, I find I'm most fulfilled in a teaching or a coaching role. I used to think that a passion was a job title, right? That my passion is to be a teacher, or a doctor, or instructor, whatever it may be. I realized actually that our passion, our careers are only one means of fulfilling our passion. And so on that note, I'd really like to talk about this idea of a passion versus a livelihood. And what is this difference? Oftentimes we feel this sense, this pressure that I notice a lot of people carry, that around their passion, they feel that their passion needs to be their livelihood. It needs to be the way that they make money, the way they pay the bills. And this is false. It doesn't need to be. I met a lot of people who were in a career that it wasn't their dream job, but it allowed them to live their lifestyle outside of work. Right? We have all of this messaging in our society around, follow your passion, do what you love, and there's this kind of underlying sense that if you don't, there's something wrong with you, that you should be getting paid to do what you love. And yes, that would be ideal, that would be amazing, and yet I met so many people that were fulfilled in their work and their life, and they weren't in their dream job. But it was a conscious choice of why they were doing it. I'll give you an example of a photographer that I met over the course of the year. She had a passion for photography, and so she felt this need to make photography her full-time job. She was working a job to pay the bills, and she was taking on contract after contract with her photography work, hoping to one day make the full-time shift into photography as full-time business. And when that finally did come, she was taking on enough contracts, she quit her day job, and she became a photographer. And she told me about 6 months in with photography as a full-time business, all of a sudden what used to be this creative outlet for her became this grudging work. It became something that she had to do. It became something that she did to get the paycheck so that she could live. She would look at her camera on the table and say, if I have to shoot another wedding, really? And so all of a sudden she wouldn't pick it up, and so she lost that outlet. And so she realized that she had to draw a distinction between her passion and her livelihood, right? And so this is not a story about settling, but start taking a good look at our passions and why is this my passion, and what are the many different ways that I can fulfill this passion? And our career is just one means of exploring and expressing who we are. The people that I met who really grasped that distinction, they made space in their life somewhere outside of work or whenever it was to explore and express their passions. So that's really the most important, whether it's in work or outside of work. Why do you do what you do? Why do you go to work every day? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why are you here? Why do you do yoga? Whatever it is that you do, why do you do it? The people that I met who were the most fulfilled knew why they do what they do. And what's behind this is that they knew the meaning behind it, right? They knew the meaning behind their choices and their actions. They brought inherent meaning to it. They brought purpose to it. To give you a couple examples, I worked as a preschool teacher in Boise, Idaho. And working with these little tiny kids, and the director of the preschool is this just amazing man. He's about 6'3", a little bit taller than me, big guy, and he's absolutely pumped working with these little kids. And super excited, and I was like, Ken, What is it? What do you love so much about your job? What brings you back here every day? And he said, when I see a kid climb the monkey bars for the first time or tie their shoes for the first time, to know that I played even a small part in making that happen is incredible. And here's a man that is so connected to the why behind what he does. He's so connected to the meaning behind it that he attributes it to those small moments when he sees a kid tie their shoes for the first time. And because of that, he infuses his work with meaning. And also that he said to me, he said, I'm fulfilled in what I do. And I bring that passion to it. And so when I go home, happiness trickles down. It trickles into my family life and into my community. Another example, when I worked as a dairy farmer in Rimbey, Alberta. I don't know if there's any dairy farmers here, but it's really hard work being a dairy farm. The cows have to be milked twice a day, every single day. You go on vacation, the cows still need to be milked. By Wednesday morning, waking up at 5 o'clock, I was putting on these blue overalls, and I was like, within 5 minutes, I'm just covered in manure and getting pissed on by these cows, and I'm like, this job sucks. How can anyone enjoy doing this? Look over at the head farmer, George, and he's just happily milking away, doing his thing. I said, George, what am I not getting here? He's like, Sean, people need to eat. I'm providing food for thousands of people, and at the same time, I'm contributing to the environment by using organic farming practices. Right? So he's connected to the meaning behind what he does. And the people that were most fulfilled, they were bringing meaning to it, and they were connecting it to something larger than themselves. It mattered that they showed up to work every day because something was made better because they were a part of it. And you think about this, like taking this idea of infusing meaning into our work, into our life, it really becomes incredibly empowering. Everything becomes a choice, right? Every moment, every action, every word, we can infuse it with meaning. Meaning, not something that has to be hidden, not something that's hidden or something that we need to uncover, but something that if we have the willingness to see it, if we have the willingness to acknowledge it, that yes, we can create it. And when I think about if I'm able to do that enough throughout my life, the thought of looking back on my days, perhaps in my dying time, and think, wow, I've lived a meaningful life. And to bringing it back to moment, that how I would actually get to that point has been by infusing meaning into all of my actions. And to know that, yes, my actions do have consequences. Gifts. So I've noticed that I carry a burden around time to time. I've noticed this is it's like a weight of life, and it's peculiar because I also notice it with many other people in my life. It's this burden, and it's much more than this highs and lows of the circumstances of life, but it's this self-imposed burden, this burden of existence. And it's not always, but it rumbles every now and then. And I think wow, I have so much. Look at my life. I'm so blessed. Where is this burden coming from? So my birthday was a couple weeks ago, and I loved birthdays. I loved birthdays as a kid. And why I loved birthdays as a kid was because I knew that I got gifts, right? I kind of figured it out, and I was talking to my mom, well, Mom, Sean, who do you want to invite to your birthday? And I was literally trying to think of every person that I knew. Why? Because the more people that came to my party, the more gifts I got, right? I was just like, yeah, give it to me. And then there came a time when I was receiving gifts that something shifted in me, and receiving a gift became burdensome. I felt a certain responsibility. Yes, there was this initial gratitude, wow, that's incredible. And at the same time, I felt this obligation, this responsibility to somehow return the gift. I didn't want to be indebted. There was a certain indebtedness that came with the receipt of a gift. And I wanted to try and avoid that. My culture had taught me to be debt-free. Indebtedness is a bad thing. And so I tried to refuse gifts, to not accept them. Or if I was like, what can I do right back to balance this equilibrium? And when I think about that in terms of this burden that I experience every now and then and that I notice people around me carry, and I think, what is that relationship to receiving gifts? And then I think, what if I was given a gift that I couldn't possibly repay? That'd be quite burdensome. And I'd ask you to consider, what is the greatest gift that you've ever been given? And the greatest gift that you've ever been given is your life. Something that you didn't earn, that we didn't ask for. It was just given to us. And there is this extreme indebtedness that comes with such a precious gift. And could it be perhaps that this burden that I see in myself and this burden of existence that I see in many around me is this misguided belief around the preciousness of the gift that we've been received and wanting to somehow find an equilibrium with this gift, and it's that struggle of not quite being able to do that. And then there's this question of worthiness that whispers into my ear from time to time. And I see, and it's this weekend, it's when I go to a great yoga class, it's because the teacher's up there reminding me that I'm worthy, that I'm enough. And if they touch that aspect in myself, it's like, I'm in tears. And why do I keep forgetting? What is this whispering of unworthiness? And perhaps it's around could it be masquerading my unworthiness of my indebtedness to life, my indebtedness of having received such an incredible gift. And so the question of your worthiness, this is exciting. The question of your worthiness is not even on the table. Isn't that amazing? You are innately worthy because you've been given the gift of life. That is the fact. The fact is there. You've been given the gift of life. You're already worthy. Wow. So the question for me then becomes, how do I remember this? How do you remember this? And how does your actions are infused with this worthiness, with this indebtedness? How does this indebtedness inform your life and how you go about your days? And imagine to wake every day realizing this gift of life that we've been given, to walk throughout my life, to proceed accordingly with this precious gift, with this indebtedness, not as a burden, but as an opportunity to be of service to life, to give back. A couple of my teachers say, and so all of a sudden it becomes this question of not what do I expect out of life. It's when I'm in these moments that I think like, life is just not living up to my expectations. Life has given it you all it can give. It's given you life. So it's a question of not what do you expect of life, but what does life expect of you? And when I think of a world where myself and those around me and everyone's free to express their gifts, what a world we could possibly create. Because when the gift might look a certain way. It might look a yogi in full expression. It might look like a musician last night, Charles Bradley, oh my gosh, expressing his joy and sorrow through song. It could look a myriad of ways, but what's underneath the surface of the gift? The true gift is permission. Permission to those around you to explore and express their gifts. And so this indebtedness becomes, how can we be of service to life? And what you are witnessing here today is me wrestling with my indebtedness. And so you know what that means. It's now your turn. Thank you.